The moment he lifted his fork, something small and heavy shifted in the air, the kind of invisible weight that presses on the chest before the mind can explain it. Across the narrow aisle of the diner, just as the bell above the door gave a tired jingle, he noticed a little girl standing too still for her age, her wide eyes fixed not on him, but on the food in front of him as if it were a distant, impossible dream. In that instant, the comfort of his warm booth, the clink of cutlery, and the ordinary safety of his morning cracked open, and he felt the quiet collision of two lives that were never meant to meet, yet suddenly could not look away from each other. Before the story carries you any further, take a second right now. If you believe in kindness when no one is watching, in second chances that arrive disguised as ordinary moments, then like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel. These stories live because people like you believe that compassion still matters. The diner was one of those places frozen in time, with teal booths worn smooth by decades of elbows and sleepless mornings, sunlight filtered through tall windows, and the low hum of life continuing no matter who walked in or out. He came here often, always alone, always early, carrying the weight of a career that paid well but gave little back, and a past that sat quietly beside him like an uninvited guest. Breakfast was his ritual, a way to convince himself that structure still meant control. He never noticed the other customers much, except as moving shapes, until that morning when a woman and a little girl entered, hesitating just inside the door as if measuring how much space the world was willing to give them. The woman moved with practiced restraint, her shoulders slightly hunched, her eyes trained on the floor and then the exit, already planning how to leave without being seen. Her clothes were clean but tired, chosen for function rather than comfort, and her hair was pulled back in a way that suggested speed mattered more than style. The little girl, however, did not understand invisibility yet. She stood openly, fingers curled around the edge of her sweater, her gaze roaming the room until it settled on the plates being served, on steam rising from eggs and pancakes, on abundance that felt close enough to touch but far enough to hurt. The mother tried to guide her toward the door, toward leaving quietly, but hunger has a gravity of its own. He noticed how the woman's hand tightened gently on the child's shoulder, not harshly, but with a silent apology for something she could not provide. It stirred something uncomfortable inside him. He told himself it was none of his business, that everyone had a story and it was safer not to step into someone else's unfinished chapter. Yet his eyes kept drifting back to the little girl, whose attention never wavered from the plate in front of him, stacked with pancakes she could probably smell, her face caught between curiosity and a learned acceptance of disappointment. That look was older than her years, and it struck him harder than he expected. Years ago, he had been that child in a different setting, standing quietly in a corner while adults spoke in hushed voices about bills and shortages, learning early how to be small so as not to add to the burden. He had sworn that if he ever escaped that life, he would never look back, never allow himself to feel that helpless again. He succeeded, by most definitions, but success had also built walls around him, teaching him efficiency at the cost of empathy. The sight of the girl chipped at those walls, letting in memories he thought were long sealed away. The woman tried again to move, guiding the child toward the door with a soft urgency, her face a careful mask of dignity. She did not ask for help, did not scan the room for kindness, because experience had taught her that hoping too loudly only made the fall harder. She had planned to warm the girl's hands, maybe find a shelter serving lunch later, and make a game of it all so her child would not notice how thin the day already felt. But the girl lingered, her small body resisting just enough to reveal her longing, and that hesitation was all it took. He lowered his fork, suddenly aware of the unfairness of eating when someone so close was silently starving. The diner seemed to grow quieter in his mind, every sound amplified, every second stretching as he debated the cost of involvement. He knew that a single gesture would not fix a life, that kindness did not guarantee a happy ending, but he also knew the damage done by turning away. His heart beat faster, not with fear, but with the unfamiliar vulnerability of choosing to care. The woman sensed the shift before she saw it. Years of navigating public spaces had sharpened her awareness, and she felt eyes on her, not judging, but considering. She stiffened, ready to retreat, ready to shield her daughter from pity or rejection. But what she saw in his expression stopped her. There was no condescension there, no savior complex, only a quiet recognition, as if he were seeing something of himself reflected back through time. That look softened her resolve to disappear. The change that followed was subtle, almost unremarkable to anyone else in the diner. There were no raised voices, no dramatic gestures, only a pause in the flow of leaving, a moment where paths realigned. The child's gaze finally lifted, meeting his eyes briefly, and in that instant he saw trust flicker, fragile but present. It was enough. Something shifted permanently inside him, as if a door he had kept locked finally opened. What happened next did not erase hardship or magically rewrite the woman's struggles, but it altered the direction of the day, and perhaps the direction of all their lives in small but meaningful ways. The woman allowed herself to accept help without humiliation, learning again that dignity could coexist with receiving. The child experienced fullness not just of body, but of spirit, discovering that the world could be unexpectedly gentle. And he, sitting back in his booth, realized that generosity did not make him weaker, but restored a part of him that had been numb for far too long. Time moved differently after that, measured not by schedules and obligations, but by the slow unfolding of connection. He listened as the woman shared pieces of her journey, not as a confession, but as context, as proof of resilience rather than failure. He recognized the courage it took to keep going when everything seemed stacked against you. In her strength, he found humility. In her exhaustion, he found motivation to do more than simply feel sympathy. As the morning wore on, the diner returned to its usual rhythm, customers coming and going, unaware that something profound had occurred in one small corner. The woman and child eventually left, no longer trying to be invisible, carrying with them not just food, but the warmth of being seen. He remained behind, staring at the empty plate, understanding that the simplest acts often leave the deepest marks. In the days that followed, he found himself thinking about them often, about how close he had come to ignoring that look, to preserving his comfort at the expense of compassion. He began to notice others more, to recognize quiet struggles playing out in plain sight. The world did not suddenly become fair, but it became more human. He volunteered time, offered help without needing credit, and allowed himself to reconnect with the parts of his past he had buried instead of healed. The woman, too, carried the moment forward, drawing strength from the reminder that kindness could arrive without conditions. She told her daughter stories about generosity, not as a miracle, but as a choice people make every day. The child learned that hope could be sparked by strangers, that one caring moment could echo far beyond its beginning. These lessons shaped her view of the world, planting seeds of empathy that would grow as she did. Near the end of this story, pause with me for a moment. If this journey has stirred something in you, if it reminded you of your own power to change a day, a life, or even yourself through simple compassion, then show your support. Like this video, share it with someone who believes in humanity, and subscribe so these stories continue to find their way to those who need them. And before we reach the final words, I have a special request. Leave a comment below about a moment when a small act of kindness changed something for you, or when you witnessed hope appear unexpectedly. Your story might be the light someone else is searching for. The truth is, the world is shaped not only by grand gestures, but by quiet decisions made in ordinary places. A man choosing to look up from his plate. A woman choosing to accept help without shame. A child learning that she is worthy of care. These moments do not make headlines, but they make lives. And somewhere, in a modest diner filled with morning light, three paths crossed, proving that sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply see another human being, and choose not to turn away.